So you got knocked down. Now it's time to rise stronger than ever. This is Forged by Fire, the Intentional Man podcast for husbands, fathers, and leaders who refuse to stay down. We rebuild with purpose, we live with clarity, and we lead like hell's watching. Let's get to work. All right, as we mentioned in the last episode, this episode's going to be on leadership. And it's one of my favorite topics because it applies to every man. Whether you're a leader in your home, whether you're a leader in your workplace, you're a leader somewhere. And if nowhere else, yourself. One thing leadership is not about is it's not about titles. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the man that you said you were going to be. And it's being the man you said you were going to be when no one's watching. You know that little piece we call integrity? That's what being a leader is. And really, until you lead yourself, you're never truly going to lead your wife, your kids, your team, or anyone else for that matter. This one's for the guys who are tired of faking it. And let me tell you, there are a lot out there. A lot of fake leaders. I'm sure you're probably thinking of 3 or 4 right now, just off the top of your head without even any effort. I used to think leadership was being the guy with all the answers. You know, the problem solver, the strong one, the one who just always seems to be taking charge. Behind closed doors, I wasn't leading anything. I wasn't leading myself, and I was reactive. I was out of shape. Think about it, your health. Are you managing that? Are you leading yourself in that to be an example to people? It's one thing to think about. I was mentally drained. Heck, I was working 80 hours a week. I was drained every time I walked through that door. And the worst part of all is I was lying to myself. I wasn't being honest about what was really happening. And I tell my kids to be responsible for their own things, whether it was a Nintendo DS or an iPad, they need to be responsible for their own things, cleaning up the house. I'd ask my wife for respect while giving her inconsistency. Because at the root of it, I couldn't even lead myself. And until we learn to lead ourselves, we're not leading anyone. We really need to start in with ourselves. Again, fix your shit. Get your house right. Get yourself right. And start leading yourself. And that's where it starts. If you're not leading yourself, then you're not really leading. You're living a life of hypocrisy. Because the easiest person to lead should be ourselves. Because we control the outcomes. We control our actions. We control everything about it. And if we can't lead the person we have control of the most, which is ourselves, then how are we going to lead anybody else? There's a big buzzword right now in leadership, and it's servant leadership. And, the basic premise of it is, leaders are servants. And I agree wholehearted with that. Leaders need to serve the people they're leading. But so often I have seen in servant leadership, guys who actually say that's the type of leadership style they operate on. A lot of those guys aren't taking care of themselves. They're so worried. They're almost people pleasers. And so that's the reason they gravitate towards that servant leadership, but they're not taking care of themselves. I'll give you one example of a guy I know, and he's a leader. He's got several employees underneath him. He's a leader at work. If one of his employees isn't doing something, he goes out and does it. I think that's a good example of taking a leadership style and saying, I'm not gonna lead myself and make sure I'm taken care of. Because wherever you are in life, you've got to take care of yourself. And while that seems a little selfish, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be there to take care of your family, take care of your kids, take care of your work and provide for your family. So it starts internally taking care of ourselves. And again, it all comes back. We've got to fix our own self first before we can start going and working on other things, whether it's our family, whether it's our kids, our wife, our job. We've got to take care of ourselves internally first. And that does mean our health, whether it's working out, eating healthy, whatever it means for you. Because all of us have different lifestyles. And, if you're not leading yourself, you're not going to get the job done. And so we've got to have this shift that takes place in us. And for me, the shift happened when I stopped pointing fingers and stopped blaming everybody. And I took a long, hard look at myself in the mirror. I stopped trying to fix everything else, and I just kind of retreated into myself and really took an honest, hard look at myself and what am I doing? What am I not doing? Now, real quickly, this is not to say we need to shirk responsibilities if we have responsibilities. You've got to show up to work. You've got to show up for your wife. You got to show up for your kids. But take that look inside of yourself and what are you not doing that you know you need to do? Okay, are you working too many hours when it's not really required? Are you not eating healthy because you're just too lazy to do it? Let's call it what it is. If you're not eating healthy, probably because you're just too lazy to do it. If you're not working out, probably too lazy to do it. And you've got to be honest with yourself. I'm tired in the morning. I'm this, I'm that. No, take ownership. Take ownership of yourself and lead yourself. That's really where the shift needs to happen. You need to be able to look in the mirror and understand the full picture of what's going on inside of you. And that's where this starts. And if you can't do that, then you can't lead. And I know it's in each and every one of us to do it. We've just got to be man enough to do it and take the time. And it's hard. You start peeling back those layers and it hurts. But let me tell you, when you come out the other side of that and you make this shift and you stop trying to fix everything else and you focus on yourself, when you come out the other side, man, it is so much better. It is so much better. You think about your habits, your mindset, your tone. You stop asking, why won't they follow me? And start asking, would you follow me? You hear the difference there? Why won't you follow me? It's pretty clear you're not leading yourself. Instead, you start asking, would you follow me? And ask that to somebody. Especially those that consider themselves leaders, ask somebody, would you follow me if it was 100% up to you? Because a lot of us are in management positions and leadership positions in our work. And, it's by default these people are following us. We're leaders because they were hired underneath us. And ask them, would you follow me if I wasn't your boss? Ask your wife, would you follow me if I did X, Y, and Z? Would you follow me if I did this? When you really know that you're being a leader, when you come to your wife with crazy ideas, hey, let's move to Bali, let's move across the country, let's do this. And her response is, take me on an adventure. You know what that shows? That shows that your wife completely trusts you, that you're going to provide for her, that you're going to be there for her, that you're going to take care of her. And at her core, she feels safe that whatever you decide, she's there for it. That's how you know. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand there's life things that may prevent, and maybe your wife has a career as well, and she's like, I got my career here. Yeah, I feel safe with you and all this stuff. But really, when she's willing to follow you wherever, that's how you know that you're being a good leader in your home. That's one of the ways, I should say. But I think every man just needs a gut check. Look in that mirror. Am I leading myself? Am I being the leader internally that I would want someone else to lead my kids? It's a good question to ask, right? If my kids needed a leader, would I want somebody like me? And your flaws? Maybe you don't follow up. Maybe you forget a lot of things. Maybe you have a lot of good intentions, but you overpromise, underdeliver. You know where you're at. Maybe that's you, but we've all got to look inside and really start start peeling those away. So one of the key aspects to our wives really trusting us and trusting our leadership is being consistent. Now, like we talked with confidence, it's kind of like a muscle. You've got to start small and work big. Now, how many of us have did that? In fact, I did this just the other day, taking out the trash. It's something I do. It's something I've always done in my marriage. And I told my wife I was going to do it, and I forgot. I woke up the next morning, the trash was still there. I was like, oops, I forgot to do it. But are you consistent with those small things? Because if you're consistent with the small things, she's going to start trusting you and trusting your leadership with the bigger things. But if she can't trust your leadership on the small things, how do you expect her, and why would you expect her to trust your leadership on the bigger things? Right? If we're leaders at work and we can't trust an employee to do small things, are we really going to allow that employee to promote and become a manager of other people? No, you'd be out of your mind, right? That's just not the way things work. And we've got to internalize that. And am I being consistent with the small things in my household? Am I being consistent with my kids? Am I being consistent with my wife? If I tell them I'm going to be somewhere or I'm going to do something, do I do it? And if you can't answer that with a resounding yes, take a look inside. What needs to change? What actions do I need to take today to start? And again, start with the small things. You want your kids to listen to you, right? Show them what self-control looks like, because we want to be leaders for our kids. We're modeling for them what adult life looks like, what a grown man should act like. Are you somebody who flies off the handle at the smallest things? That's not being a leader. It's being reactive. Nobody likes a leader who flies off the handle at small things. Is that how you are with your kids? Now, trust me, I've got 2 boys. I understand how difficult that can be at times. But do we have self-control? And are we teaching our children to have self-control? Again, we're modeling what a man should be like to our kids, whether it's our daughters, our sons. We're modeling to our daughters what type of man she should want. We're modeling to our boys what type of men they should be. Are you showing leadership in that? Or are you a reactive father? You know, just some things to think about. And what about your team that you're leading at work? Do you show up early? Do you do what you say you're going to do? Or do you play the victim? I've had bosses all over the spectrum. I've had bosses I really admire and respect and would work for in a heartbeat. I have bosses that I never care to work for them again. I had one boss that every time we would be fully staffed, he would have a target on somebody else's back. And it could be the smallest thing, but he always had a target. And it was consistent that he always had a target. It's not the leader I wanted to be. I want to be the leader that builds culture. I want to be the leader that builds a team so that there's pride in what we do, so that there's a sense of belonging at work. And, you know, what kind of culture are you setting at work, at home? Is that a culture you would want to be part of? Because I know for a lot of years, and it was especially bad when I was in law enforcement, I would use what my ex-wife would call my cop voice with our kids. And it wasn't intentional, and it was something I had to get under control. And again, it wasn't intentional, but until somebody brought that to my attention, it was something I had to kind of tone back. But we all have those things that we bring home. And when somebody calls us out and tells us that we're acting a certain way, are you one to correct it, or are you one to get defensive? If you're getting defensive, you should ask yourself, is that what a leader would do? Or would a leader take time to look internally? And again, until you lead yourself, you're just a guy barking orders, whether it's your kids, your wife, your team. My encouragement to you today is be the man you would want to follow. Be the man you would want to follow. Subscribe, review, and share this with someone who needs to lead himself first. Join the free community, and that's where you're going to grow deeper. We're going to have real conversations. There's no fluff, no BS, just real men talking about real issues. And on our next episode, we're going to talk about rebuilding a marriage after you've screwed it all up. Episode 4 is personal and it's powerful. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for listening to Forged by Fire, the Intentional Man podcast. Your comeback story starts here. Don't forget to subscribe and share. And if you're ready to lead your family with strength, there's fire waiting. Let's go.